Hey, everybody, we are going to get started. We can hear background, so if you are one of the presenters or if you are just listening in, would you be sure and mute yourself, please?
Mute yourself.
Ready, Tyner? Yes. Okay, good morning, Kevin. Gaveling us in on this budget workshop, and give us just a moment to pay homage to the flag and start this meeting off officially.
And also, Your Honor, I do have
Yes.
an answer to Commissioner Gonzalez's question on Friday, on Omni and.
Great, so we'll start with you first. Yeah, let's stand, just for the record and for people watching at home, it's Monday, June 29th, 2020. We're at the County Courthouse in Commissioner's Courtroom, properly social distanced and, well, I would say properly prepared for COVID-19 safety. And ask you to rise and, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, we do have commissioners that are participating virtually, so good morning, Commissioner Chesney and Commissioner Vaughn. And with me in the courtroom is Commissioner Modis, Commissioner Gonzalez, Tyner Little, and Auditor Dale Atchley. And Dale's going to lead us off, Kevin, because he's going to wrap up something from last week, and then we truly start fresh this morning with you and your office. Go ahead, Dale.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Yesterday, Friday, when Judge Woosley was here, they questioned from Commissioner Gonzalez on Omnibase and our other delinquent tax collections, our delinquent fees offices. There used to be a contract with Omni. That contract has expired. So, but they're still using the contract. What they do is they submit to Omni every case is submitted to Omni costs us $6 per case. Last year, that was around $27,000 worth of fees. Once it reaches a certain point, they turn the cases over to Linebarger. However, they maintain the case also in Omnibase, so they're in both. And then whoever does the collection first, of course, with Linebarger, is just their attorney fees that they have. There are no additional fees. So we need to determine whether y'all want to talk with the judges, whether we want to continue with Omni or not. But as we do, every case costs $6 to process to there. So that's all the fees they get. So they don't add additional court costs because they can't. And that's how they get their fees. So
It's a one-time
fee of $6 per case for Omni. But they can be in both.
They can?
They can.
They can.
They can.
But Omni, no problem with Omni, it sometimes will take 4 years or 6 years.
Well, that's
Because of the
why
driver's
we've turned it over to, once they get to a certain age, we then file it with Linebarger and trying to get the best option of trying to collect the case and collect the fees. Sometimes Linebarger does a better job that Omni can't, but we try to get the cases as best we can. As the judge says, the older the case is, the less likely it is to collect.
That's what I'm saying, wait 6 years, by the time that 6 years comes around.
It's just with
4 years,
Linebarger, there is no additional fee that they add to the case. It's just their attorney fees that they add to it.
Might be something to look at, I think.
Yes.
I think it's something we should put on the agenda.
Yes.
Okay, I know you'll take good care of that. That's a good answer in the sense of might get things speeded up and resolution and money savings.
And if we don't use Omnibase, it would save us $25,000 a year.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Perfect. We'll put that to good use. Okay, super, good info. All right, now we'll proceed with the tax assessor collectors and Kevin Kieschnick, and he's got a presentation for us. We all have the 2-pager, so take us through it. Tell us about your
Put on the agenda.
your budget.
Okay, good care of that. That's a good answer in the sense of.
And again, somebody's on the line that needs to completely mute.
If we don't use Omnibase, it would save us $25.
Oh, you know what it is? It's a delay.
Delay. Someone needs to mute the delay.
Super, good info. All right, now we'll proceed with the tax assessor collector.
Okay, let's hold for a moment.
He's got a presentation for us We all have the 2-pager, so take us through it. Tell us about your
It's delayed. Someone's got it.
your budget.
I'm muted.
And again, somebody's on the line that needs to completely mute.
We don't use Omni basis, which is 25.
Oh, you know what it is? It's a delay. All right, now we're proceeding to tax assessor collector. Okay, let's hold.
Kevin, are you monitoring the meeting? If you are, you need to turn, if you're watching the meeting, you need to turn it off because it's feeding back in the courtroom.
Somebody's on the line that
Teresa, are you monitoring the meeting? We're getting feedback. You need to mute your mic.
you know what it is? It's a delay.
Yeah,
All right, now we're proceeding to tax assessor collector. Let's hold.
Kevin, are you monitoring the meeting? If you are, you need to turn, if you're watching the meeting, you need to turn it off because it's feeding back in the courtroom.
Somebody's on the line.
Teresa, are you monitoring the meeting? There we go.
there we go.
It was Teresa's.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sounds great.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
All right. Now if you heard all those repeats, that was fun. Okay, changes for the 1200 is fairly minimal with one exception. I'm going to get into that when we hit item number 5311. But a couple things I do want to point out as far as our budget goes, just for the purposes of the commissioners, so they kind of get an idea. I know every year we have some discussions about cutting office expense and supplies and so forth. And if you look at the pie chart, it says our office expense and supplies are $157,115. Maybe next year we could add another pie to that chart because of that $157,115, $114,000 of that office expense and supplies is mail. And so our supplies are relatively, for the size of our operation, there's not fluff in our supply budget. And I just want to point that out. So if you subtract 114,000 at 157, that tells you what our other supplies are. And obviously we can't control mail, and mail continues to expand every year. As we send more bills, the mail obviously is going to increase. And then a couple of things on that, of course, so there's some deductions out of that we won't have that occur on every other years. And one of those is the postage and Federal Express. And this has to do with the voter postage certificate mail out. That's something that's done on an every other year. And we will not have that expense in the 2021 cycle. And those things there will be individual voter registration cards mailed out, of course, to new voter registrars, but this is referring to the mass mail out that is statutorily required every other year. And then other charges, the 13,100 deduction, that's basically the printing piece of that mass mail out. So that's something that won't occur alongside with that. Going to the software service and maintenance, the increase is $620. One thing that is not on this budget, which is a project that we were working on as a result of COVID, and also that was going to go with our ADA project and remodeling, was a queuing system. We've decided to move forward with that queuing system back from, it's a capital outlay project that was approved back in 2016, and we've been waiting for the remodel to take place before we put things in. And the reason we were waiting at the time was it was basically a hardware intensive project, and it was going to run around $70,000 or so. And we didn't want to bring that in, put it in place, and have to uproot it and reset it. Well, technology, the good thing about waiting is technology has gotten better. The process that we found is way less expensive than what we were looking at before. It's less than half of the prior cost. or around half, and we're gonna be looking at a web slash, I'm drawing a blank, cloud-based process instead. So it's not reliant upon internal hardware to the degree it was in the past. And the good thing is that we don't have to be buying new systems, because as they update the system, as improvements are made, it's done in the cloud, and we won't have to continually buy and replace outdated equipment and outdated process and outdated software. The software and cost for that on an annual basis, though, is $14,160. And the reason it's not in the budget is we didn't have it when the budget was ready, and we just got the quote in from the company that we chose after making several visits to other tax offices to see how they worked. I'm really glad we made those visits, because seeing them in action really changed our mind over who we were going to use and which process we were going to go through. So we'll be providing that information to you in hard copy and a different presentation when we have the remainder of the quote together, and hopefully be bringing that to Commissioners Court in the coming weeks. Running down to 5610, we have some capital outlay projects around document scanners for property tax office, $1,000 each, and then non-capital outlay less than $5,000. We also have we got to replace a safe that is probably 50 plus years old and can no longer be worked on. So that one is going to be replaced. But those are essentially the changes we're requesting. We don't have any personnel change request for my office for the upcoming year. We do have one position we may be downgrading, but it will not have an effect on our operating budget. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody has, and we'll go from there.
Kevin, this is John. I know historically, at least since I've been here, so this is my fourth budget working on here at the courthouse. And I know that every year, your office in particular, and maybe one or two others, have been proactive in making cuts, even when we haven't asked, and then even on top of the cuts, when Commissioners Court has asked the various offices and departments to scale back. I just want to commend you and thank you for that. I don't know if we ever get a chance to, because you're still operating, you're still providing the services needed for the community, and yet you have found areas that you can help reduce. And so I don't know where this budget will take us. I don't know if we're going to get to that point again. It seems every year we're asking to at least scale back a little bit. But I just wanted to ask, is there any area that if we did that, do you have any space? But if not, I'm okay with that, because I think if we look at the historical value you've brought to the county and to the taxpayers of this county, is that you have made cuts well beyond any 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever that number may be, every year. So I guess two questions. Do you still have room if that were the case? And, well, I guess that's the main question I want to ask right now. Not that we're going that way, but I just wanted to hear, because it seems very lean, and that's why I was setting that up, is because you have turned this into a very lean office, that you're really accounting for every dollar that you spend and that you use on behalf of the taxpayers. And so you're already coming in looking at that throughout the year, and I appreciate that. But I want to know, is there any other areas that could be scaled back?
Well, one of the things we're going to do with one of the positions is downgrade it and put it as a frontline as we need it. We had 2 admin assistants here and one retired, and I did not see the need to replace with another admin assistant. So we really need that spot on the front line, and that's what we're planning on doing this go around. So there'll probably be some subtle reductions in that as far as the expense and labor goes on that. So obviously, we won't be asking for additional personnel. But as far as scaling it back anymore, if you look at our budget, I'm going to do just a quick calculation here. These are round numbers. My supply budget is $43,000. when you remove the mail piece from that.
Yeah.
And so we're about as lean on that as we can go. If somebody says we can cut another 1%, well, then we're getting in, we really don't have fluff built into that. So, I mean, you look at areas that could be cut, this is a legislative session, travel, obviously can always be cut.
Don't say it, Kevin. I had already made my notes. You are not only, I mean, yes, I want to sit here and echo what Commissioner Modis says, but I'm interrupting because your position and the way you help and defend with regards to tax policies is invaluable. I was about to say, make sure that, I appreciate you making this budget lean, but you, please come to us if you feel like there is something of huge value, whether it's motor vehicle and DPS, or whether it's tax policy, or whether it's the way you assisted me, quite frankly, in the legislative session with some of the fiscal, nuances. It goes without saying, those are dollars that yield dollars. And I want us to get away from what can we cut to how can we modernize, how can we win for our county, how can we be efficient? And then, by God, if you can find ways to cut on top of that, I mean, get the cape out of the laundry and put it on every day. But there's no doubt that this legislative session, we're going to need you. And the only thing I wanted to add is, I bet you have some ideas about what's coming down the pike with regards to legislative session, and we want to put this bug in your ear that we're going to host a legislative workshop, and we will want to know what you and the tax folks are thinking, we need to hear as a court advocate for. So I just want to throw
Well,
that out. If 2,900 doesn't cut it, you've already saved enough money, let us know.
And I will tell you one thing that's coming down the pike, and this is budget related. It has to do with a nuance from SB2 last session, and what we're going to be forced to certify as far as the anticipated collection rate. It's not going to be accurate because the state says we have to use the prior 3 years collection rates, and we're working on a fix for that. But I'm going to be sending a letter to the taxing units, if they haven't received it already, about that particular item, and that there really is no way to forecast what the collection rates are going to be as of COVID, but we can only anticipate that there's going to be some reduction, and we're seeing some reductions right now, as you guys have seen. Looks like as of last month, we're running around 2% less than a year ago. I don't know how that's going to, only time will tell what those future collections are going to be, depending on how much we have to scale back on opening the state back up, or how much we can scale up on it, and when and where and how, and there's all kinds of things that are going to affect that. So it's hard to put a number on those unless there is a hard, what really concerns me about that certification level is the smaller taxing units, and it has to do with what if you have one of your top 10s go bankrupt and you have to certify 100% collection when it's not going to happen? It's going to cause some of those taxing units to potentially adopt a budget that's going to fail. And we pointed this out in 2017. It was pulled out, and in 2019 it found its ugly head back into the SB2 and passed. So now that some of the legislatures are getting a bite of what's happened with this, and how that was not a good plan, it's resurfacing, and actually I'm personally resurfacing it and bringing it up, and we're going to file a bill to try to fix that.
As they say, you just made a great case why we need you up there. Okay, sorry, so I interrupted you, but I think that the only question I have for Dale is, obviously, we've kind of done this across the board, scanners and safe. What do you think about checking with Michael on that kind of stuff as well, Dale?
Yeah, we can definitely look into the balances. If those are definitely needed, we can possibly acquire those this year.
Yeah. Kevin, we've been just trying to see if there's any opportunities to get those to you in this fiscal cycle. Let us just further investigate. I've marked it and get back to you. But sometimes you do better than you think, on these budgets. And
Right.
so we were able to do that for another office, and particularly scanners have really, come back down in price. We're talking about $2,000.
Another issue that Kevin had brought up, pardon me, about the queuing system, because he was saying that there's around $14,000 services maintenance per annual cost. We know we already have some CO set up for the equipment side of it, but that also covers the first year of maintenance. So this additional 14,000 will not affect this year's budget, will affect next year's.
Good job. I liked your short-term goals. Go ahead.
The other thing I'm going to add is, one of the side effects of the COVID is we haven't been traveling and we skipped the conference. And so I actually think we can probably pull those safes out of this year's budget from travel.
Well, it's just a way to help everybody out. I mean, it's one half dozen of another, right, Dale? It either,
We should have a plenty, we usually we always have a surplus in our capital outlay funds, so I'll work with Tyner and Teresa on that, and we'll find the funds to cover it this year.
yeah. Okay, thank you, Kevin. I was gonna just comment, I like your short-term goals. I'm really focused. Has been under the last few months since January 2020. I think your staff development day is very needed, very excellent, improves management skills. Let me know how we can be supportive of that, or what COVID-19 room you need to be in, so to speak, to make that as successful. I have been working with HR actually on staff development as a whole, and I thought that was fascinating that you had it here. So maybe we could compare notes, see how this can be done virtually. It can also be done in the central jury room appropriately, maybe in teams or rotations. So I really commend that, and I would like to be a part of that if I can be of service and or help, because we do have some dollars in HR for staff development. It's not called staff development, but it's something like that.
Well, one thing that was another side effect of COVID is we were able to do some of these things during the COVID when we slowed down and we're closed to the public. So we were able to kind of do that intermittent in between. So that certainly helped. Typically, we would probably be looking at a day for just some training, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, because, when we have satellite offices and people away from the central, sometimes processes start not working in the way they're really supposed to, and make sure everybody's on the same page. And that's really what the point of that is for consistency, because the last thing we want is inconsistency. And when we hear it from time to time, and it's going to happen, but it also gives us an opportunity to correct those inconsistencies and make sure that everybody hasn't been misinformed on state rules and regulation updates and so forth, because we get our fair share of them.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, great. Anybody, how about questions at this time for our tax assessor
I
collector?
don't have any questions, but Kevin, I just want to thank you for what you've done in the rural areas, especially in Bishop. Thank you for the support out there. It really paid off, that I think that the people are happy that they're getting the services out there, versus not getting the service out there, having to go to Robstown. But I really want to thank you for that, and thank you for everything else you're doing, for your commitment. So I, appreciate the work you're doing.
You're quite welcome. Also, Robstown is now open. We've got the glass completed there, so they're up and operating now too. So it should take some of the pressure Bishop was seeing off as well. So anyway, I was glad to have the Bishop office while Robstown was closed, because they did pick up some overflow from the Robstown office.
That's great, and continue to keep us informed. Downstairs, floor 1 is the most trafficked area. You and your entire team worked with our EOC team to create a safe environment, but you're going to find maybe that as it gets used more, or as crowds develop, or, maybe you need further support down there, it's just a phone call away. Please let us know. Please let Melissa know what you think, might be need, because you don't know until you get enough people there to figure out what a problem might look like.
Yeah, we're gonna, our next step's gonna be property tax collection, and that's gonna be an interesting process this coming up collection year.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
and we may be able to utilize this queuing system to do some traffic control as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for that in all of our offices. So we're kind of excited to have it, especially if we ever have to go on a shutdown like we did before. We can actually physically set up appointments and people can come in at specific times if we ever get to that level. Hopefully we don't, but the capability and the technology is there, and we'll actually even be able to use it even with a mix of appointments and walk-in traffic. So we're kind of excited to be able to.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, super. Well, thank you. If there's no questions, Tyner, we'll let Kevin go on to his regular day, and we'll move on to the next presenter. But we're always here. If something comes up, Kevin, let us know.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
So we're going to move on to, we'll cue the DA at this time, Tyner. And I'm going to get my, here it is. Let's see.
I don't see anybody joined
Okay.
right now. Let me,
Let's go ahead.
I'm on.
Yeah, there's,
This is, I'm on.
hi, Angelica. Good morning.
Hi.
Okay.
Mark is trying to get on right now. We are having a little bit of trouble, but Mark is trying to get on.
Okay, we'll hold, but gives us a chance to bring out the new documents. And you look great and sound great. We've got a great picture, visual here. So if not, we'll start just going through the operational budget first. But we'll give him a few minutes here.
His keeps saying that the address page is invalid, and I don't know if that's because he has to be sent a separate invitation. He's trying to share my hyperlink.
Teresa can hear me. Teresa, will you call Mark Gonzalez and walk him through the process, get him whatever he needs?
Yes, I will.
And we
Thank
can
you.
go ahead and start, Judge. I don't want to delay. I know, I don't want to be
Sure.
the reason early in the morning that y'all's day gets backed up.
Well, and what's nice is to start with, let's come out of order, because the 3520 capital outlay looks very simple. I mean, in other words, let's give him some time. Let's tackle the easy one. Let's do capital
sounds
outlay,
good.
3520.
Yes, Judge. So in 3520, we have about 15,000 in capital outlay requests, and some of them are contingent upon what the court does with the other requested items in our budget. Some of the things that we really need, and from the time we submitted this budget until now, we've talked with Lance Murphy and some other individuals, and it looks like things might change, where we really prioritized getting the iPads for our office in order to have more remote access. It looks like the new ventures with regard to Odyssey and other programs are actually going to require laptops.
Yeah.
And so that was our preference from the beginning anyway. The laptops are easier for the attorneys to maneuver and to operate in a courtroom, much more functional. But so we are asking for additional desktop computers, is one of our priorities. A lot of our attorneys are operating with laptops currently that have to stay plugged in 100% of the time. The minute you unplug the laptop from the charging base, or you don't have it plugged in the courtroom, the batteries don't hold. And so these attorneys really, really need additional desktop computers to operate much more functionally. A lot of the software that we get from the different law enforcement agencies with cases are in the form of Blu-ray DVDs. They're in the form of USB drives. They're high volume and high data, and the laptops just don't cut it. And so it's just a matter of actually not being able to function. Literally, we had a murder case the other day, and all the law enforcement was there to brief us on it, and they tried to play surveillance video, and the machines that we had were so antiquated that they wouldn't play the video. So we had to go over to CCPD and take a field trip to go utilize their system.
Yeah,
And
we can't have
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, we can't have it. In our grand jury room, we have not upgraded that equipment in years and years and years. And so the video footage they watch is having the same problem. It's grainy, the screen is old, the projector is old, it's not compatible with the systems that we have. And so, especially more recently, you know, where we've had a lot more murders and officer-involved shootings, the videos become just key. And we couldn't play them for our grand jury, who makes decisions on indictments. And so we desperately need to upgrade that equipment within the grand jury room, including the coffee maker, which I think we got one, Judge, thank you, and refrigerator, the screen that we play this stuff on. And so we attached to our budget estimates for that type of equipment, and that's for grand jury. And then none of our misdemeanor prosecutors have functional chairs. So what we did is we took guest chairs and they kind of use guest chairs behind their desk. And so obviously that's pretty awkward. And so we are asking for some chairs. I don't think it's a big ask, but we're hoping to be able to acquire those things. And then the rest of it relates to DVD burner towers that we really need in order to, I'm very proud to announce, I wish Mark were on right now. We no longer have a backlog of cases in the district attorney's office. The backlog that was inherited and that's been in existence in the DA's office for about 14 years is completely gone. We are now working on 2020 intake cases. Every felony case and every misdemeanor case up and through March of 2020 is ready for either grand jury or ready to be filed. And so that has come with doing double grand juries. We're thankful to the district judges for allowing us to implement double grand juries. We're indicting 200 cases a week. We're filing about 1,000 misdemeanor cases a week before COVID anyway. And so because of that, we have to now keep that backlog on. And so a lot of what you're going to see in our budget is maintaining. And we have to do that with new DVD towers. Like I said, we're getting a lot of Blu-ray, and we only have about 2 burner towers in our office that actually copy Blu-ray. And we have to increase that. So we're asking for some new burner towers. And then we obviously will need a new slim DVD drive for the grand jury room if we get those laptops that we are requesting, because most of the laptops don't have the built-in DVD player, and those are absolutely necessary for our office. So as far as capital outlay, that's kind of where we are. We've tried to be very modest in our budget and cut where we can to try to offset costs. But that's kind of the outlay that we're requesting, Judge and Commissioners.
Yeah, okay, and I agree. I kind of knew about the video issue, just because I think you had brought it up, and that to me is not only makes perfect sense, but again, I think we said this last year, there's a lot of things sometimes we can't do, but we have to be able to commit ourselves to making sure that our side has the equality of resources that the other side does too. And just a modernization that's going on everywhere. So if you want to know why the iPads versus the desktops, again, it's that video component that is why it's so valuable. And nothing goes to waste, because those iPads, if they're not the best suited, we take those and we repurpose them in another location. In fact, we've been robbing Peter to pay Paul since COVID started. We took laptops from Ida and county libraries and used them somewhere else, and then we got them back and then repurposed them to another location. So iPads turned out to be an incredibly useful device for virtual work, for remote work. So
what's the amount you think you have on capital outlay? Have you put a number to it?
it's down here.
Oh, where is it?
It's 15,185. Page 12. Page 12. $15,185.
Not a lot.
No, it's not.
I have a question. What page are we? Are we 3520, right?
3520.
There's a couple of things there on the says other expenses, other services. Can you just kind of explain to me those?
Judge, I'm trying to see where you are, Judge.
Let me take a look to see which number.
35.
These are the operating
20.
expenses, Your Honor.
But where does it say other services?
On the right
That's
side.
operating expenses.
There's
That's
just
not the
to-
capital.
Yeah, I think you're in another one.
He's on page, oh, okay, there's somehow
Oh, I'm in the first page.
page 12.
I'm in the first page where the wheels at.
Okay, there's a page 11, page 12.
Oh, he's over here on the wheel, on the
Ten.
pie
Somehow
chart.
started on page
10.
8.
10.
Okay, he wants to take you back to your pie chart, okay? Go to page 10 on your pie chart and it says other
Sorry, I
services.
didn't see the numbers down there.
I got my budget proposal, but it doesn't have page numbers, the one I have. And so which pie chart are you looking at? Is it 3520, non-personnel?
Right.
Yes.
That's really the third page, not the 10th page.
Yeah. I think that's the whole packet.
That's fine.
And it says office expense and supplies, and then other expenses, professional services, and then other services. He just wants to know what makes up other services, if you know.
Okay, I am looking. Let me grab my stuff.
Judge, other services and charges, what makes up it for DA, they have their, membership dues, professional services, and professional licenses. That is a big chunk of their money, because that includes their bar dues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, and so that's what, okay, I'll say that again, I'm sorry. They have their professional, under other services and charges, they have memberships, dues, certifications, and professional licenses. And so that includes their bar dues for each of the attorneys that they have there on staff. And so that's what's making up that large chunk of change.
You know, I can
And
just
they
kinda
also
identify
gonna
that,
be
like-
the dues to the state and then the local dues, so that our people can be members of the local bar. And the dues to the state are mandatory. We can't operate without,
And I have no
you know.
problem with that, but I'm just saying, for future references, if we can identify that, you know, like apprentices.
I think he just wants you to put it on there.
Yes, we will.
Just so we'll know. I have a
Dale,
question.
just
Yes.
put it on there.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, we got that question answered. Did Mark, were you able to join us? If not, okay, Angelica, let's go to the operating budget.
Your Honor, one more question on
Yes.
the capital outlay. I know Lance and Michael are working on doing a lot of warranty replacements. I know they've put in a request to purchase a lot of laptops and laptops and desktops, because several of the older equipment, like she's saying, some of her laptops, the batteries can't hold charges, or they don't have the information. I know Michael and Lance are working on replacing several of these pieces of equipment, and they may have some of them for the district attorney.
and I will say, the IT department has been incredible. And so to the extent we can thank them, they have come in and replaced batteries when they can. They have gone above and beyond to come in our office and help us operate. They'll go up to the courtroom when our people are in trial and they're having problems with different issues with, equipment. And so we're very grateful to them for all the help they give us.
Okay, let's go to the operating budget. And,
Yes.
that one is on for the commissioners. It's page 11, and it's 3520, but it's operating. And again, you don't have much of a change, but identify the two that you do.
I don't have what you're looking at, and
Oh, okay.
so.
I'm sorry.
On our operating budget,
It's gonna be page 4, Angelica?
on mine,
Yes.
I wanna, if I can, just caveat, a couple of things. Our office has worked very hard to generate revenue in addition to fulfilling our legal obligations. And so I do want to say that, in balancing what we're requesting from Commissioners Court, to please keep in mind that with the cite and release program, by calculations and working with the clerk's office and the IT people, we generated reports that we attached where it's been over $500,000 in inmate housing costs that we've saved with the creation of the site and release program. We have helped with the jail population control when requested to either dismiss or no charge cases to get inmates out, which has been a savings of hundreds of thousands in outsourcing costs that the county has had. And we are always actively seeking grants, and we pay for several positions within our office through those grants. And so we are trying to be as fiscally responsible as we can. And so in our operating budget, we tried to offset desperately the increases that we had by taking from other areas. We reduced our salary overtime to offset costs for other items requested. We do need additional temporary funds, and the reason we need that is because we have got to start clearing out files at the warehouse. And so we are proposing to hire temporary employees where I can start bringing 6 to 10 boxes from the warehouse. They'll comb through those cases so we can purge files. We're going to begin with non-domestic violence, protective order, and DWI cases. So all the criminal trespass cases, the burglaries of a vehicle, the cases that we can actually use to enhance for future criminal activity, we're going to start purging and from years and years ago, and to make space. And so that's the additional request under the temporary employees. We received cell phones, and so obviously we had to make allotments for that within the gas and the credit card. But I'm trying to see, we didn't ask for very many increases
No,
here.
it
So
balances out to just an overall increase of 2,500.
Right.
So,
And I will say this, much like Kevin Kieschnick said earlier, we have reduced our travel. We are not really having our employees go to CLEs outside of the area. There's a couple that are mandatory, like maybe prosecutor school and for our specialized units, but otherwise we are now able to do all of our CLE in-house. Doug Norman and Jenny Dorsey do all of our CLE in-house. But one thing I really, really am hoping that we can get is the copier for the grand jury room. And I didn't know until I requested this copier that we actually have a copier committee in Nueces County. And so I did do my my paperwork and submit it justifying the need for a copier in our grand jury room. My understanding is that some departments have been approved previously for copiers, like to the tune of 2 years ago, and are still trying to get them or have just recently got them because copier committee says no. And so I'm really desperate to get that copier in that grand jury room. Like I said earlier, they go through probably 5-6 reams of paper when we have grand jury. And we are having double grand juries every single week, indicting 200 cases a week. That is a huge amount of paperwork that has to be either scanned in or copied. And so we really, really need that copier, please.
Shouldn't be a problem, I don't think, right?
I've never,
Yes,
Heard
there is
the
a copier
copier
committee. Michael is the chairman of that committee. I believe, I'm not sure who else sits on the committee, but we've spoken with him, and he says that this is a justifiable addition, so we'll be making sure that it's part of their budget.
that sounds great. Sounds like a winner.
Very good.
And again.
Thank you, Mike, if you can hear me.
Yeah, and I think, we're gonna look at all of the, some of the small things. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but it's not for people who are giving that kind of service, to have a coffee maker or a microwave or whatever the issues are that grand jury room needs. I mean, we need to take care of people and this courthouse and the employees, and their small, requests that, have a large impact. So I'm looking at all of them as, I can't see one in here that's not reasonable, so. All good requests for both capital outlay and operating budget. And again, we'll be working with procurement to make sure that if there's a scanner that's needed, or a laptop that's needed, or a copier, that if it's available now, We don't need to be waiting 5 months to get it, so.
Correct.
We're gonna work on it, and Dale's
Yes.
making all these notes as you're visiting. Okay, the last one's the most significant one, and we were gonna hold out, but I know you know everything there is to know about this personnel request. And what I think, there's a lot of changes, and you spent a tremendous amount of time, I know, because we've talked about finding a way to make those numbers work, but really make your organizational structure function at a better level and help the county at the same time. So I want to ask that you go through it, because we want to get it on the record, the justification. But I'm already impressed, because at the end of the day, your net increase is 100,000, but your effect is everywhere. You've literally made an effect at all levels. So give us the holistic picture, and then I guess for the record, kind of tell us how you came about with these new numbers.
So we began with the understanding, like I said earlier, that everything we do here at the DA's office has the potential to affect the county budget in very, very detrimental ways. If we stop taking care of the in-jail cases as a priority, then the housing costs that the commissioners are going to have to face in outsourcing to other areas is significant. If we don't keep the CJIS numbers where they need to be, then the county's going to lose significant funding, and we play a vital part of that role. And so I began by looking at what is it we need to accomplish in order to be fiscally responsible to the county as a whole. And so when Mark and I sat down, Mark was like, look, we're a little top heavy, and we need to cut some of that down. And so if you'll recall, we came in just this past week or so, and we deleted the second assistant position in order to fund part of what our budget request is. We wanted that level 2 secretary in order to dedicate that person to CJIS. We gave up that second assistant position in order to accomplish that, and we created 5. And so where we are asking for that administrative 2 secretary CJIS position, we've already accomplished that. We came in and gave up that second assistant position to do that. And so y'all have already approved that, and it had no impact. And so we're very proud of that position, because as you know, Judge, you work so closely with our CJIS secretary, and she right now is a shared position. She's still doing her felony secretary stuff and the CJIS stuff, and the CJIS needs to be full-time. There's just no way around it. Whoever holds that position needs to do that all day, every day, to continue to keep our numbers at that 90%, because I think we're hovering at 89%, if I'm not mistaken.
We are, and can you imagine what stress relief it would be to be, if you had somebody full-time, we would never be in that pressure situation that we find ourselves in constantly. So,
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's huge.
Definitely. We gave up, and we're giving up the misdemeanor chief spot by combining, actually, I think that's the one we did. We went in and combined the misdemeanor chief with the felony chief position. Mike Gordon has been here such a long time. He's the one who ended up being hired into that spot. And so it continues to level out the tier, where it's Mark, then myself, then you have Jordy Schimmel, and now you have Mike Gordon. And it creates this tier of insulation, where you have now 3 people underneath Mark setting out the policies, and gives our prosecutors more than one person they can go to that's all in the same line, all in the same know. We're not branched out anymore, where the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. We now have a linear line, and through that, we've been able to get rid of 2 supervisor positions, which obviously are your higher paid positions, higher benefits that have to be paid out. None of the supervisors are going to get any type of pay increase under our plan. Everything that we are requesting in terms of reclassification is for the line prosecutors and the support staff. And so we tried to be very reasonable. What we attached were documentation to support the disparity in pay between Nueces County and other counties of similar size. Even with TDCAA, the president of TDCAA, we gave you an email where even he knows, and yeah, y'all are the lowest paid county. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, that's why Nueces County doesn't get the candidates that it deserves, because we're one of the only counties operating now the site release program, which is novel, the progressive PTD program, which is in our budget that we're generating $60,000 a year to help offset costs for the county. And so we have the programs. We have a hard time keeping employees because of pay. We're losing one who is a felony. She's a felony 5 here. And she was going to go to Harris County to be a misdemeanor prosecutor, and she was going to make more money. And she's a felony 5 here. And thank God she changed her mind, and we're able to keep Cassie because she's phenomenal at what she does. And I was desperate to keep her, but I couldn't offer her the incentive. But she stayed because she wants to finish out what she has started here in Nueces County in the Child Protection Unit. So we're grateful to have Cassie, but we're asking for small reclassifications. We're not asking for any huge jumps. We're not, trying to move everyone ahead, 4 and 5 groups. And we're trying to be very modest. They didn't get the raises last year, and we completely understand. And we know with COVID, the commissioners are going to be facing deficits. Without court happening, you now have to face the shortfall in fees collected and court costs and offsetting probation and all those other things. And we're cognizant that we are asking for the reclassifications, and we're giving up positions to try to accomplish it.
Thank you. That's a good explanation, and I would encourage everyone to read the thoughtful documentation that was provided in writing that's behind personnel request that summarizes what our first assistant district attorney has just gone over with us. And I'd also remark that in my mind, you can't earmark money for everything, but because we renegotiated the GEO contract here, I believe that the appropriate, place to have allocated that stream of money is both in law enforcement with the sheriff's office and the DA's office. So that extra $700,000, or even if you wanted to be uber conservative and call it $550,000, right, at a lower census count, right, depending on how many inmates you have in the Coastal Bend Detention Facility, that we should at least consider that part of that money, 1/5 of it, should go to the DA's office. And that is a steady revenue stream, and it is a way to tackle both the need and the correction that needs to occur that would have never been even questioned but for COVID. But in this case, that those GEO dollars really need to be targeted to 2 areas. And I've told the sheriff this, his department and the DA's office, because that's the appropriate nexus to what these dollars, how these dollars, coming in that nobody expected, right? I mean, we expected maybe some increase, but not the increase that we got. And so just food for thought, commissioners, on that personnel request, to be able to earmark the extra GEO dollars that will come every year for this need. So, okay, we still have a few more though, Angelica. We've got 1323, and I am mindful of the time, but go ahead and take us quickly through pretrial. And then I think, I've got to do forfeitures next. And just kind
And
of
so
give us the highlights.
1323 is our pretrial, and the pretrial account, thank God, it kind of funds itself. That is going to be the revenue generated from our pretrial intervention program, and it's kind of our first offender, try to save you before we actually have to put you into the criminal justice system. A lot of our cite and release citations end up over in the PTD program. We generated revenue in that, $58,432.68. And the breakdown is that Go ahead.
I don't know, that wasn't me. I think that just came in as feedback from somebody else. Go ahead.
Right. And so what we are requesting in this budget is the same reclassifications of personnel, and it would be an increase of $13,711. But the PTD program should be able to generate those fees to cover that in and of itself.
That's what it looks like. That's why I said we could go fast through there, but I'm gonna give everyone a chance to answer questions, but finish forfeitures next.
Okay, so under 1328, which is our 59, as you know, this is money that's generated from the seizure of illegal contraband or illegal funds. I wanted to make sure that y'all have more detail with regard, so I listed all the other agencies that we have memorandums of understanding with, that we work with regard to 59. And to make sure that everybody understands, we work with the rural counties, we work with the rural areas, other counties outside of as well. It's not just local. We work with, Clayburgh County and Sampat County as well. But this account funds a lot. So for example, one of the rural communities needed some assistance with purchasing body cams. And so we gave them $10,000 out of this account. I think we came before y'all. I can't remember. It was a little bit before me coming into this spot, but to help offset those costs for some of the other law enforcement agencies. But in this one, it is also a request for reclassification of our forfeiture attorney, Naved, and his position funds itself. This account funds itself as well. And so we come in as required by law to ask you to approve any changes in expenditures. And so what I tried to do was change it up a little bit so that I don't have to keep coming back. And so I just kind of moved money around where we use it. We are now offering training for law enforcement. We work very closely with the CID captain at CCPD. And even with the Sheriff's Department, they've come in and asked us to help rewrite their offense report writing manual. So we've been working on that. We offer training and we invite free of charge all of the law enforcement agencies. And so we are now putting that money to use in assisting with, training for other law enforcement agencies. We pay for the phlebotomist out of this account. So when we have the no refusal weekends, it's the DA's office that pays for the phlebotomist to be at the CDC center so that, and now during COVID, what we did is we reached out to Chief Markle and Captain Sherman and Captain Shannon, and we said, hey, look, we reached out to Captain McQuaig at DPS and we said, look, all your law enforcement officers are having to go to the hospital during COVID to do blood draws, and we want to fix that. So for about 6 weeks, we stationed a phlebotomist at the CDC center so that our law enforcement officers didn't have to go to the hospital and face any exposures, and we weren't taking the medical people and pulling them off treating people that might be sick to do a blood draw for a drunk person. Not that it's not important, but let's be real about what's really important. And so now with what's happening with the numbers, we're going to do that again. Mark and I have already talked about it, and we're going to station a phlebotomist every weekend that we can at the CDC to avoid having our law enforcement have that exposure to COVID at the hospitals doing blood draws, and to keep the nurses and phlebotomists at the hospitals with their attention where it needs to be, with just treating people who are sick.
I want to
But-
just hold right there, because every time someone says something that gets my attention on COVID reimbursement, I stop and I tell Dale, as if he's not paying. I know he's on it too, but it gives us a kind of meeting of the minds. Dale, that expense is definitely COVID related, and we might be able to get those dollars back on Helica. So I'm going to ask that not only you continue that for the safety process, but also just the documentation. There's certain forms Dale's going to mark it, but that in particular is very important. And then just overall, having you guys pay for the phlebotomist, that I want to talk to you maybe offline more about as we delve into this idea of creating our own Nueces County toxicology lab for the purposes of
Correct.
ME. I'm wondering if we can create the lab of the, future to fuse that. So those dollars, I don't know, there's something there. I just haven't quite put it all together yet, but I want to understand the needs you guys have on toxicology and where we send it, and if it has to be a certain laboratory, like for DNA, I imagine it does. But for non-DNA lab samples, I'm wondering if we can not only create our own revenue here, but save you guys money. So again, this is not, we don't have it in existence today, but as we plan for the ME office, that was contemplated, is having our own toxicology lab there. Anyway, that's just something to look
I
at.
would really love if, as you make decisions with regard to the ME's office, Judge, if you have any type of committee or any type of ability for our office to have input in that,
You bet.
we probably have that relationship with them because of the nature of what we do every single case that is, high profile, or that is, an aggravated assault or a murder case. We've got the MEs in here testifying. And so as you move toward creating that facility and getting some outline guidance, we would really love to have an opportunity to have input in that, Judge.
Yeah, that's why I like these workshops, right? Sometimes they get your mind to really start moving. It's not a committee, but there's definitely stakeholders that meet often. There was a committee for site selection, but that's completely different. But having said that, we will get you in contact with the Smith Group that helped us with that assessment. And I'm going to get you the assessment. I'm making a note. Tyner's looking at me. We're going to get her a copy of the assessment itself. And luckily, we're in super early stages. All they've done is kind of looked at the feasibility of building it and what options there'd be there. But as you talk about some of the things you're spending on, it seems that there might be more appropriate outside to get it out of your budget and put it in somebody else's. Anyway, keep going. I know we're over, but that helps me.
Along those lines, out of the 59, let's say our prosecutors have a situation where the defense has come up with an expert, and we need to either hire an additional expert on a case or get private testing from a private lab because, DPS is very selective on what they will do with regard to testing. We pay for it out of 59. Everything we can supplement out of 59 legitimately under the statute, we do. And so we'll eat those costs. So if Nueces County had a private lab that was certified that we could utilize, it would be just an incredible plus to the office and to the prosecution of cases in Nueces County.
Yeah, let's share that concept with Mark in a meeting that will get created as a result of this conversation. So, okay, so that's good. So the overall impact to that operating budget, again, is located it's the adjustment $7,000 total.
Judge, can I
Correct.
just, I just wanted to comment too, I wanted to compliment the DA's office just in the same vein you did with with Kevin. I think y'all done a great job of being extremely creative, and I appreciate that because, that doesn't have to be how things go, but the fact that y'all have done that is really appreciated, and it makes a big difference for all of us, because we're all trying to do things that y'all are being creative and coming in and trying to not just ask for a bunch of stuff, and I know you need a bunch of stuff, and I know everything you ask for you need, but you're doing it in a way that really kind of takes a little pressure off of us, and so I just wanted to be complimentary and say the same thing to you guys for really trying to step up and help do that, so thank y'all very much.
Thank you,
Yes.
Commissioner Chesney.
And thank you for you catching up on the backlog and also for doing a good job in that area. It was about time.
That was the other thing, good point, thank you.
Yeah.
It's about time we came. It's good news to
Thank
hear
you.
that.
We couldn't have done it without, I would tell you, Lilia Ann over in the district clerk's office, she worked with us a lot on getting that backlog done, and she also works with us on the sieges. So the DA's office and the clerk's office, we've had a lot of people help us along the way with the backlog, and we want to thank y'all for all your support and your patience and us accomplishing this goal. But Thank you so much. We're really proud of it, and we're really proud of all of our staff for how hard they've worked
And
to
I
do
like-
that.
And I like the idea of the temps for the, trying to cut back on other areas, to dispose the records, which will really,
Yes.
really, really help a lot, clear some of those records that are way overdue. So thank you for that also, for putting it on your radar, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Good job.
Angelica, if you can, I know you mentioned earlier, and this has been something that Mr. Gonzalez has constantly advocated for over the years, but, you mentioned the savings in the jail population control, and I don't know if we have that here, but if you can maybe just get it to Tyner so he can share with us what the total costs or what the, estimated costs have been, if you can do it annually or since Mr. Gonzalez
On
helped
the
propose.
On the site and release,
On the
Commissioner.
site and release, yes, on the
we
site and
have
release.
that- We did attach that as a
Okay.
document to our, I can resend it to you. On the housing cost, I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but I know we've worked so closely with Judge Canales on that, making sure we don't have to outsource inmates when we head up into that 99 kind of full deal. But on the site and release, we did attach that.
We didn't see it, but maybe if we can get it.
It's in OpenGov. I can, you just log into OpenGov and all their attachments are there. There's about 15 or 20 of them. And so we weren't able.
You want me to just get it through Tyner?
Yeah, we can just
No worries.
get it to everybody or just.
Just that piece of
Yeah,
it
we'll-
is
we'll
he's
forward that one to
interested
you.
in.
We'll
Thank
forward
you,
that
I was
Matt.
curious in that,
Forward it to you. I can-
and what
Good job.
what the savings have been since site and release, because, that helps with the bottom dollar, like you mentioned, and as, mentioned with Mr. Keeshnick earlier, your department has been one of those that have always been very proactive, and, once again, don't know where we're going with this budget, but if the discussion goes to where we need to scale back, because of the times that we're in, I think certain departments need to be held differently. That's just my idea, to sharing my policy, my thoughts of looking forward on how to deal with budgets, is that we don't just uniformly just tell everybody, this many percent, everybody cut off your budget. I think that those that have brought value, revenue back to us, cost savings to us over the years, should be rewarded for that innovation and for, that working with the staff and with the judge's office. And so that is definitely one of them, that if we did get to that point where we'd have to say, we need to really look at tightening our belts even more, DA, tax assessor, and, a few others, that I would say, but they have brought value to us. They have brought revenue back to us. They have brought cost savings this year and the years over, because that's what I'm gonna look at. I'm not just looking at this year's budget. I'm saying, what value have you all brought in the past as well to this county, to the taxpayers? And so, I do appreciate the work y'all are doing, and so we'll get that copy, and that'll help us look it over, and
Thank you
so I
Thank you, Judge.
appreciate it. Thank you.
so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'm sorry we couldn't hook Mark in, but I think he's listening, just not by video. But anyway, if we have further questions, this is round one, we will be back in touch with you. And I will, as I said, make sure that we have a scheduled meeting with regards to the lab concept. So, thank you. And
Sounds-
the only other
thank you
thing
so-
I wanted to mention is there's another integral part, and that's the evidence room over at the annex that we're in the process of building for the sheriff. And I just wanted, you to know that that's in the works. And I think that's also important to your office, to keep that chain of custody pristine. And that came out of last year's budget, and the money is available, and the work has been spec'd. I think we're waiting on Public Works and contracting, but I just want you to know, now that you mention it, when you see things like this, we'll make sure that it's a group effort. In other words, we haven't signed the contract yet for the contractor, but I believe it's imminent. And so I just want you to know, we'll contact you on that.
On one of our long-term goals, we are going to we have already outgrown this office. I'm gonna have to start having 2 prosecutors share our larger offices. Just because, with filing cabinets and everything else, it's just kind of become a little crazy. So a long-term goal is to acquire office space. I know we've started working with Annette on trying to build out an area over in the witness coordinator office area. But if we could move all of our stuff from the 5th floor and you allotted us a small little part of that evidence warehouse y'all might build, we could have all of that 5th floor area to build out offices, which would be phenomenal. But just, that's a long-term
Yeah,
deal.
well, the whole, yeah, you're
Not
right.
a right now.
Well,
We'll
but
make
it's
do with-
good to start thinking about it. Okay. Well, thank you, Angelica, very much. If there's no other
Thank you.
questions for Angelica at this time, I'm gonna
Thank you.
let her get back to her office, and we're gonna move on to our next presenter. Thank you, Angelica. Our next
Thank you, Matt.
presenter is.
Abby, Judge.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Coastal Parks is next, I believe. Is that correct? And we've
Can
got.
y'all hear me?
Hey, Scott, great to see you this morning. And we've got you almost perfectly timed, just 3-4 minutes late. And we welcome you, and give us a chance just to turn our packets to Coastal Parks.
Okay. If I'm supposed to do something on my end, this is all new to me, this technology.
You're doing great. We hear you, and you're very clear. You look good on the screen, and
Well, I don't know, that's going a little far there, Judge. I don't know if he looks good on screen.
I mean, he's nice and clear, easy to see.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, all right. Let's don't go too far.
So much to talk about at Coastal Parks. Why don't we start with your operating budget, which we know is 1,800. And let's start there, Scott.
In 180?
Yes.
So,
Our package is arranged that way, it's coming up first. Go ahead.
okay, so we have three departments. We have Department 180, 181, and 182. 182 used to be kind of our, 182 was kind of like our capital and, our peer, department. But what has happened because of the GLO's beach maintenance reimbursement program that we participate in, any funding that we use to do beach maintenance and any funding that we receive from the GLO can't be commingled with other non-beach reimbursable related reimbursable expenses. So the big change this year in 182 is that we're moving, the only increase you see in 182 is really a wash because we're moving repairs, buildings and grounds monies out of 180 and 181 to fund what we need in 182. That way, when we have things going on with the piers, it doesn't conflict with the auditors and our reconciliation report for the beach reimbursement program that we participate in. So you see a big jump in 182, but it's all coming from what we've already been budgeted in 180 and 181. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does.
Okay, so that's a wash. We're not doing anything. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Make more sense when you go through, you can point it out when you go through your different budgets.
And was this recommended by the,
Okay.
Scott, was this recommended by the auditor? Where did this come from? Why that you're having to do it this way?
Yeah, this is something that Elva and Dale and Lisa have been struggling to get in some kind of, reconciliation type form for about a couple of years. And so this was the best way for us to get there by their recommendation.
We also had several meetings with the GLO. They were here because they've always had questionable costs and questionable expenses that we've reported on the reports we file with the GLO. So we met with them and we worked with Scott to try to make sure that the expenses related to the beach were only on the beach and those that for the pier were only for the pier. So there was no dispute from us and GLO.
So do you confirm what he's saying in regards to this is an accounting mechanism and not budget changes in the areas that he's talking about right now?
Correct. We're moving from one department to another. That's correct.
Okay. So, okay.
somebody ask a question?
No, Dale answered it. Go ahead, Scott.
Okay, so 180 is our main operating account. That's the beginning of our budget presentation. And in 180, you can see if you go down to maintenance, repairs, buildings and grounds, you see $44,000 decrease. We moved that to 182 for the pier situation. I don't know why our insurance is jumping up $52,352. I don't have any control over that.
That was the increase of the windstorm.
That was what?
The increase of the windstorm, it was approved by court by paying it, so that was a necessary increase.
That was a necessary increase, he
So-
said, Scott. Can you hear Dale when he's talking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because just when I was listening on the way in, I had a hard time hearing Dale and Commissioner Gonzalez one time on those mics when I was listening. So if everybody just needs to talk close.
So you've got, we're asking for an increase in temporary salaries. I mean overtime that we've got there. We're budgeted in this department right now at 30. We're asking for an additional 15. We're asking for an additional $2,000 for office supplies, maintenance, equipment, repair vehicles. We're asking for 20 there, but I'm kind of confused on that too, now that we've gone to this enterprise lease system. I wasn't aware of that when we put the budget together. So that may not need to be at that level with this new enterprise equipment lease thing. I still have old vehicles that have to rotate out and have work done on them because everything out here just gets corroded and eat up with salt water.
Hey, Scott, this is Dale. On that, on the enterprise, the rent agreement right now, we're only replacing one of your vehicles, so that may still be, because if you have two of your older trucks that need to still have maintenance repair to it, that still may be an issue. I know Michael and Romeo's working on the next version of our lease agreement, which will probably replace those two vehicles you're talking about. Right now, we're only inquiring of one for your replacement for this year.
Okay, so really the biggest jump here is on our motor grader. What we do is we've been on, for those of you who don't know, we've been on this lease purchase option. Dale's familiar with this, where we negotiate a deal with Holt Cat. We have a motor grader and a front end loader. Those are my two big heavy equipment. And so we try to rotate those out every 3 years, where we pay an annual lease payment, and at the end of 3 years, we own it. And so we have better trade-in value, because if you keep the equipment out here any longer than that, it just gets eaten up with the salt water and it has no trade-in value. And so, but we're looking at, on this one here, we worked a deal with Hope Cat to where we can actually just lease the equipment from them outright and not have any of the extra added maintenance expensive. That equipment is really expensive to change oil in it and stuff like that. So this is a much better deal for us than a lease purchase. We just lease it, and at the end of 3 years, we get a new piece of equipment. But that's kind of a must. We can't get by without our motor grader and our front end loader. And that's really, as far as the actual budgeted expenses in 180, those are really the big items. There's really nothing major in there other than that, the insurance and that motor grader lease. Now, I will go on in 180 when we look at additional personnel requests. Back in 2017, we had really worked hard with Julie and HR, as well as Dale and the auditors, to try to see about getting some janitorial positions to help with the constant cleaning of restrooms, showers, facilities like that, both with the rescue campers and those that are on the beaches. Well, the hurricane hit, and so we scratched it. We were going to look at trying to add 4. Excuse me. And so we just kind of put that on the sideline until we got IB McGee opened back up, and really had, since 2017, we've not ever asked for anything in a budget request. And so as we're bringing all these facilities back online, I'm requesting that y'all consider adding 2 janitorial positions to help us keep up with everything we're doing, and even more so now, it's awful demanding. However, I do have a suggestion on that. Before you finalize the budget, if I can try, again, me and Julie, and when Elsa was there, and I've talked with Michael about it, I have tried my very best for years to find a third-party janitorial service that would help us supplement what we're doing versus adding FTEs. But I've not found one that was cost-effective when you compare that with FTEs versus their services. We did have a janitorial, a cleaning company that was helping us at IB McGee before the hurricane. I have talked with them recently to see if they've renewed their commercial insurance and would consider giving us a quote. But after the hurricane, naturally, they had to let people go and they lost business and everything. And so they're willing to sit down and talk with me because, Commissioner Chesney, like we've talked about many times over the years since you've been here, if we can source out support services where we can, not everything, but where we can, and operate more efficiently, I'm always all about that. And so I have the personnel request here, but before you finalize the budget, I will make a commitment. I'll try to get out there and see if I can find a more cost-effective way to get an annual contract to help us with that. But I mean, that's just being completely transparent with you guys. So that's what those two are right there. In our capital outlay, everything on this capital outlay is basically replacing things that we've already had in the department. They're not continuously annual expenses. These are one-time expenses to replace things that we need that are just getting old and past their shelf life. The one thing on the capital outlay in 180 is this backhoe, tractor with the backhoe. That's a new ask. And the reason why we're asking for that is that as these new parks additions have been built, the utilities that support all these RV pad sites and everything are much deeper than the old rundown parts of our park. And so it's pretty hard to hand dig down to these utilities when we need to. Like we were over at IB McGee this week trying to find an AEP line that runs to their lights in the park. And so we hand shoveled down there, but that's a new ask. So that's not a replacement of anything, but everything else in here is. So that's 180. Before I go to 182 or 181, I'll just stop there and see if y'all got any questions on 180.
I do, Scott, on the, I want to ask you what I asked somebody else too, is on 180, Coastal Parks operating budget, you got other services and charges, other expenses, what are those?
Alana, what else falls in? There's a bunch of stuff that falls underneath that.
Well,
And it's itemized in the backup data.
Yes, it is itemized in the backup data. For coastal parks, you're gonna have your, equipment that you use for your, rentals that you have. So like the fishing poles, whenever you get those repaired for your rental, Scott, that's coded there.
Yeah.
Any of your operating supplies that are for the piers, those get coded there as well. Also in other services and charges, just like with the DA, if they have any licenses, professionals, memberships, those type of things, those go there. I do believe, that the lifeguards are an itemized expense under the interlocal agreements. And so that's what that is.
Now, the one thing you don't see in our budget, which we're used to doing. I used to do this a lot when Steve Waterman was around. We used to provide, going into the summer, we would kind of provide him where we're at with our projected revenues. Our revenues are going to start jumping up pretty drastically now that we got IB McGee open back up. Where you remember we had a big hit with that being closed for 2.5 years, and so the concept is with our revenues at both the piers and the RV park is the more money we make, the less dependent we are on our asks from the general fund to support our budget. So I'm happy to say that our revenues are really doing very well right now, and they're going to continue to go up. And I think, into next fiscal year's budget year, when we've got 93% occupancy rate at IB McGee, because we can do long-term there, and the way this thing is rocking over here at Padre, you're going to see a significant help, for lack of better words, on what we ask from the general fund. And so it's always been our goal to continuously build out and get to a point where, I don't know, the commissioner and the board want me to be at 100%, but I'd like to stay at 90. That way, y'all got 10% skin in the game. But that's 180 in a nutshell. And so, I understand you guys are up against a lot of decision making, and I don't know where all this is going to shake out, but wherever you end up on this, on our request, I'm fine with. Just give me a heads up and we'll live with it. We'll make it work.
So the custodian piece of it, I mean, we have the ability to negotiate with ABM, who's currently doing custodial work here. They're one of the largest companies in the country that does that. It probably needs to be third-party contracted. It just makes more sense that way from a benefit standpoint, from, being able to pivot if you need to. I think that's something we should explore. I mean, there's discounts in volume, and we're already doing business with them, so we need to see what that might cost. As far as your cash flow projections, yes, we're getting feedback, but we need to be able to have a 1 year and a 3 year and a 5 year on cash flow projections. And if you'll just send me the numbers, I have the software that can run that. And I'll get that done for you. You need to send me your basic spreadsheets. And, I love Steve Waterman, but you don't need to have Steve Waterman.
Judge, you were cutting out.
Unmuted.
Caught most of what you said.
Okay. I just said that just send me your revenue. I can do that lickety-split. Cash projections are not hard to do with the software that's available to us. I can get I can do that very quickly. What I need to do is see your, basically your revenue models and your and your expenses, and we will get those run for you. It's very important for any department in the county that has revenue to have a 1 year, a 3 year, and a 5 year cash flow projection. It doesn't matter that it doesn't come true. It matters that you have it and that you understand what the future holds. As your expenses go lower or your capital outlay to produce that revenue goes lower. So anyway, let's get that on there because your revenue is built upon no debt. In other words, your RV park is paid for. So your cash revenue is easy. It's just projecting models of visitors. Okay, so we're getting lots of feedback. Let me hold. Tyner's working on it. So let's see, where did you leave off? I think we have another, you finished 180 and you finished, let me see, you talked about the personnel request already. Let's talk about the pier funds, 182.
Okay, 182 is basically, it's pretty simple. Everything in 182 that we have there that's already budgeted, the increase is coming out of 180 and 181. So I'm not actually asking for.
It's net neutral.
Let me pull it. Where are we at here? Okay. So, yeah, we've got. Maintenance, repair, building, grounds. Okay, you see there, you see the big maintenance, repair, buildings and grounds. The 44,000. You can see that coming from 180. So that's coming out of something that's already budgeted. And Then you've got the 50,000 there. So that's 94,000 that we're moving in there. And those are coming from our other departments. So that what we're doing there is that we're basically doing what we talked about in the beginning. We've got to have money to make repairs to the piers and separate that from where the GLO money comes in, and those expenses are accounted for. And Lisa can do a really good job of explaining this. And Lisa and Elva really helped me a lot to fix this problem that they were having when they were trying to reconcile their reports with the GLO. So those increases there are coming already budgeted in different departments that I already have. So it's really not a big ask.
Yes, as Scott was saying,
And then-
when we did our reports with the GLO, we were having to subtract out the expenses of the pier from our actual expenses of 180 to be able to get the balances that we're required to do by GLO, because GLO was making sure the expenses are beach-related expenses only.
Right, so Scott, I read your budget over the weekend, and this is how I made my notes. Basically, the only ask I see here is really the custodian personnel, which we've already discussed, and the equipment in capital outlay, which we've already discussed. And then, of course, on the operating budget, there is some, again, it goes back to the front-end loader, and it goes back to the equipment. So I'm good. I'm good. I don't have any further questions, but I'm going to open it up to see if there are any.
Just quickly, Scott, and tell me, and I know you kind of touched on it, but with IB McGee opening up now, and I know the response has been pretty good, and I hate to even ask questions right now with this COVID on revenue projections and stuff like that, but are you seeing, what is your thought as far as, and it's a guess, I mean, what do you really think the increased projections on that IB McGee will do as far as gross revenue? Let's make it net revenue, gross minus expenses associated with it to the county if we don't have another, God forbid, tragedy or calamity or hurricane or whatever the case may be, shutdown.
Well, right now, since it's been offline since the hurricane, roughly the RV park itself, not the, well, we have different sources of revenue. We have what's called dump and fill, where people pay $5 to come fill up their trailer or their RV and dump their holding tank for that may be camping on the beach. That's a good source of revenue. We also have just the RV rental source of revenue. We have, when the park office is open, we have the laundry room. That's a source of revenue. But at IB McGee, at the rate we're going now, especially with the new fees that we set, see what we had to do, our monthly rental at IB McGee used to be $450, and that includes your and that was way too cheap, and it included your electric. And so what we did an extensive search recently before we opened it up of all like RV parks in our region, because we can't compete unfairly against the private sector, and we got to charge fair market value. So we've now set our new monthly rate. Once the park office opens, and we have the laundry facilities and those other facilities that you get when you pay full price, will be $825, and that's in the curve, in the bell curve that everybody else is charging. So I think you're going to see your revenues over there going into next fiscal year when everything's up and operating. You're going to see $750,000, I think, on an annual basis just out of that park.
Net or gross?
That would be gross. That would be gross. I mean, to get to net, well, I had to take some work for me because
That's okay. I just was, I don't want to do that to you. I was just curious.
yeah.
I was just curious. So you,
Well, now I will say, let me say this though, back to the judge's question about 182. Originally, when 182 was set up, and I really want this to resonate with you guys because it was a remarkable success story. When we took over this pier operation, we set aside, what was about $67,000, I think, to get started up with temporary salaries, cost of goods sold, you know, the tackle, the chips, the drinks and stuff, the little guard shack that we work out of. That 1 year after we took it over, 182 used to make enough money to where it would pay for itself that year, the next year's operating expenses, and put funding into 180. And so I sat down with Dale. Dale did not want me to carry a $250,000 fund balance. That's how much net that pier was doing for us after we paid for everything. And so we agreed that was another way to move funding from the pier operation over to the operating account of 180. So we basically had this business model that was working in coastal parks that was completely self-sustaining, like y'all want me to be everywhere else. But 182 is a great success story. And the pier is, you know, at Bob Hall, not the same for Horace Caldwell. We have a concessionaire up there, and we negotiate a base, our annual rent, and then we negotiate a percent of the profits. And then up there, it's a 60-40 split. He keeps 40% for running the gate, and we get 60% of the pier admission. So that's another source of revenue with our concessionaires. And, you know, and our concessionaires at Michael Mays, they were smart when they negotiated their contract, including their extension, and they negotiated that they would have 8% a gross 8% of their gross profit, and then they would max it out. If any time it would max out at 12,000, they didn't have to pay any more. And so they've been basically moving to a point to where they're maxing that out pretty much all summer long. 10 months of the year, they're maxing out at 12,000 a month. Now, you know, I mean, they've got how many more? 3 more years? 2.5, 3 more years until we have to put that out on an RFP, because that's just the way we executed the contract. And so there'll be some time to negotiate maybe some better profit sharing with them or whomever it ends up being. And that's about all I got. I don't want to keep y'all too long.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Scott. By the way, everyone should read the goals and the wish list and some of the exciting projects that Scott listed. They're very much worth mentioning, and they're also incredibly helpful. Scott and I are going to meet with Maria and try to develop some of these to present to Commissioners Court for consideration on CDBG mitigation. And anyway, so they're all, we didn't highlight it all in the interest of time, but I read them and they're great. Scott,
Good.
thank you.
Yeah, if you just include me in those meetings, I'd appreciate it.
No, we were planning on excluding you. Of course, we're going to include you.
Just asking.
So, yeah, and just real quick, Judge, and then I'm getting off here. Some of these goals have already been done. I've already
I
gotten
know. I'm just laughing at Chesney here. Of course, you're integral to this.
Thank you so much.
We love you. You're integral to this. Absolutely. I just said
Okay,
that
I'm
because
leaving.
Scott's been working with Maria already, and I don't have a date or anything, but I know they'll get us one real soon. In fact, I'd appreciate it if, since we're talking about it, if you would get us a date.
Yeah, and I'd like to just-
Commissioner Chesney and myself, because time is of the essence on those grants. So if you don't mind, Scott, get back to us.
Yeah, and if you want to shoot us some dates via
Yeah.
email, then I can.
And it's all remote, so
Right,
it's
I wanna
really
zoom
whenever
in,
we
so,
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, now we're going to move to Inland Parks, and they're not here, but I would like to still go over their budget. Tyner, is that correct? Am I correct? Okay. Oh, did they reschedule?
think they
Forgive
got
me,
it
I don't know that information.
I don't know, if that would be a Teresa knowledge.
Okay, we can,
I think that they might be coming in July 7th. I know I'm not on the mic.
no, that's great. If that's the case, we'll hold.
Inland Parks has not rescheduled. They will not be doing a presentation.
That's what I thought. Okay, but I still want to go over it because it's very important. And then we could figure out how to get questions answered in a different way. And Dale can really help and Lisa can really help because you guys know this. So let's look at inland parks and start, in my opinion, start with the operating. And the adjustments are, obviously enormous. But in a way, they are, it really goes back to, Dale, things that we're already doing, right? They're already part of our capital improvement plan. You want to address that $800,000?
Yes, this is an issue they always bring up to improve their parking lots and roads for the trails and all additional county parks. They will always do this, so we always move this is a CIP type of event, so we need
Agreed.
to work with to try to get this into, when we talk tomorrow, when we have our CIP discussion, this should be an issue, because if you look at also that they have departments that Edward goes over, which is Hilltop. Hilltop is also requesting a $240,000 increase for their parking lot.
Right, which is
So,
all
it should be
CIP,
yes.
yeah. So I just want everyone to know that when you look at that piece of the budget, I went ahead and just immediately took out the 800 because it doesn't belong really there. And I have a number of 46,339. And I guess out of that 46,000, one of the biggest goes to equipment repairs. That's $20,000. And then some of the other bigger ones are the toiletries for county parks, 4,500. I mean, you can see it. But anyway, the point is that it's a much more reasonable number when you consider that we're already tackling all of the $800,000 itemization there with county roads, park trails, and county parks, so.
And like we talked with, we're right now, we're bringing in one truck for this particular fund. I know Michael is working with Edward and his staff and Romeo on replacing the remaining fleet he has, because we're getting 55 vehicles in this year on our vehicle lease balances, and we know we should be replacing some. So right now, the repairs are needed, but at some point in time, that's definitely what will be going down.
Exactly, and then the other thing here is, if you look at 170, and that's capital outlay, again, the really big thing here is Sablatura Park, and also playground equipment at Hazel Baysmore, and once again,
Those are the items we also add to the CIP.
exactly. So that number is skewed. And then the real one to look at is the personnel request, which is assistant director reclassification for the salary, and the differential is 6,800. And again, that's for that second in command person we've talked so much about recently. And then, since we don't have anyone here to answer questions, but those are the highlights. Again, I almost would like to get a new budget out there, just so it accurately reflects what the real number is versus those CIP costs in there. So then move on to number 140. And in 140, you really get to see an area that we don't talk a lot about, but it's the operating budget of the county stadium. And it shows actually a proposed drop in the budget. And with the only itemization for capital outlay, also, in my opinion, the PA, the 10,000 would go into CIP. And the Pro Gator is the only one that's out there that's probably really important. That adjustment is 24.5 there. So again, I've made my own little notes. You might want to do it your way, but again, when you look at certain items, they just reek of capital improvement, and others are more equipment-based, right? But the Gator apparently is very critical for the maintenance and cleanliness and the ambiance of the county stadium. And
Yes.
not sure how old the old one was, or I don't have enough detail about the Gator, but I assume it's not working or it's not operational.
Well, this is also something you might be able to see, because if this is dealing also with some of his parks in the area, we may be able to buy one piece of equipment that functions on all parks.
Exactly. Anyway, I kind
As
of
long
have
as we have a trailer to move it around.
right, I kind of have a check mark by that Gator, so. And then the next one is the senior community services.
2 Gators.
And the senior community services do have a small increase, and it is attributable to food cost.
That's correct.
And that's just the nature of the beast. Things
Yes.
get more expensive. We call that, inflation.
And also with the adding of COVID, we've added more clientele to his list. So part of it was because of COVID, but part of it was additional individuals that we serve.
Right, and I told Edward again, allocation, if there was an increase this year to COVID, or if it begins to continue into this new fiscal year, those expenses are appropriate.
And we are working with him and his staff to determine those that are there. We just make sure that they only, a lot of the time for reimbursement, we'll make sure we have it, but we make sure that it was COVID definitely related is why we started, even though we may continue, but it had to be the reason why we started.
Exactly, so that increase could see a way back to net neutral.
Correct.
And then the big one is, if you go over to senior community services capital outlay, we're back to vehicles again, and it has to do with the van, and I did want to ask you if we had contemplated that vehicle.
Yes, if you look at the one above, you'll see that there was in the operating sign, you'll see that we have a vehicle rent, which is the 15-passenger van.
Yes,
So that capital outlay should be, if that was for the same van, then that would definitely need to be removed.
okay, so I'm going to have you kind of update.
What?
They requested two
Uh-huh.
replacement vans and they got one. So the
Uh-huh.
additional van that they wanted, they would need to discuss with
I
Michael for the
gotcha.
next.
For the
group
next.
Going through.
Right.
Yes.
For the next,
Okay.
because our process that we probably, we, in the process, we don't want to purchase any vehicles anymore, any
Yes.
further, so.
So maybe we could, as I say, Inland Parks, to me, it looks like it needs a good update.
Yes.
And so I'm going to have you guys do that for us.
I'm sure
And-
Michael and Romeo's working on that, and we'll make sure that those two departments are looked at first.
Right, and the same thing with all of the desktops, making sure that, $7,000, it might be an opportunity to acquire those. We are buying in volume right now.
And so, like I said, some of these might be in the warranty replacements that we're already doing.
Exactly.
I know we're acquiring 50 to 75 pieces of equipment,
Exactly.
but because of COVID, it's getting very slowly to get the equipment coming in, but I know Michael and Lance are working on it.
Yeah, so this is one that when I looked at it, I said, I really just need a whole new one. Okay, but it gives us a feel for what's coming up. Let me just write down one little note so I don't forget to write vehicle lease on that one. And like you said, Lisa, it may be that they requested two, and that's why we're seeing one. We'll get some clarification.
And there also might be an item on 4190 capital outlay, they're requesting some chairs in the Robstown Community Center, 100 chairs at 15,000. That should be a CIP probably as well, because we replaced several of the chairs in our office as well.
Yeah, so those are the kinds of things,
Yes.
we'll just go ahead and clean it
Yes.
up a little bit
Yes.
more for us. And then lastly, but of course not to be forgotten, here is our Hilltop facility. And the adjustment there went to software, and I'm a big fan of this park management software. And Edward was explaining it, but we might have him do a little bit better job in court, talking about that park management software. That's really the big expense here. The cell phones are completely warranted, given that we have staff that needs cell phones, and we need to be able to communicate. So I guess that's just,
And also, we need to make sure we work with Edward on this, if that park software can be used at other parks as well, it may be just not something else.
exactly. And I think I saw it in multiple places. Didn't you see it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's in 0170
That's where
as
it
well
was.
as 4195. That $5,000 is per license.
Oh, per
So,
license.
so they needed two different licenses.
Okay, got it, I got it. But he needs to come and explain the benefits, and I know that it's written here somewhere, but not in, I think I saw it on the OpenGov. But anyway, let's have him talk about that. So that has to do with the operating budget, and then the facility itself is item 1590, and it had 2,500, and it was really all due to gas, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's just an uptick in gas, and then, and I'm guessing that has to do because of more equipments or
Yes.
more equipment?
Yes, there is more equipment there, yes.
And then if you look at capital outlay, this is again, all CIP.
Yes.
100%.
We definitely agree. The cracks
know.
from the walkway as well as replacing the roof at the Hilltop is definitely CIP as well
Right.
as other existing playground equipment. So
Right,
most of this
so-
is, if not all of it's CIP.
I agree. And the only thing really to talk about here is the personnel request.
Yes.
That one's obviously needs to be mentioned, and that is it's moving from basically a part-time to a full-time, and that's why you see the big jump, the $15,000 jump.
He actually canceled that personnel request.
Oh, he did?
Yes, he did. He decided that he was not going to make that request anymore. He asked me to remove it.
Okey dokey, I just marked it canceled.
Okay.
Okay, and then if you'll move on to 1760 in Robstown. Robstown actually shows a savings in his budget request. It comes from the utilities department. Not sure why, I guess, why
Well,
we,
if you look at the history for the electricity and the telephone services, they've been averaging $30,000 to $40,000, $30,000 to $29,000 on their actual expenses. They don't really need 40. So with my staff and I determined that that's probably that was overflated budget, so we dropped it to 37, which should be appropriate to cover the cost of what we expect for the electric and water and gas.
okay, sounds good. And then if you go to the Robstown's capital outlay, again, it's gonna be CIP. So, again, that one's misleading a little bit. You move to 1770 with senior community services. Again, you have the same scenario with telephone and utilities.
Correct.
You've got, except for this time, there's a savings. And then, I guess that's all based on history.
Yes.
And then the capital outlay is, let me see. What was this one about? Oh, this
These are-
one was like actual printers, scanners.
They were asking for a refrigerator, stove, and items for it, and like, as we mentioned before, we can work with Tyner and Teresa and our staff, and we'll see if this can be acquired now.
I think so. I think that's a good one. Okay,
So can I, just a quick question on some of this capital outlay, and I heard some of this coming in this morning too. Are we just, just under on our capital outlay budget, and that's why we're
Yes.
trying to do a lot of this stuff now, which is a great thing to do.
Well, we normally have, when we budget our capital outlay, we budget around $1,070,000 every year, and we always come in around $600,000 to $700,000. We're always $300,000 short, below items. And when the departments come up with these lists of, we need this, this, and this, well, if we can already acquire it now, let's do it now, so they don't have to wait.
And I think that's a good concept, but let me just ask the question as we're looking at this budget over the big, long haul too, is would that be money that if we didn't use, we could put in the fund balance?
Yes.
So, for the reserve, so I think we need to keep that in mind.
Yes.
As we're
And that
going
would be the
forward,
case
because-
if these cases were, if this was a very large expense, we'd probably say we probably should wait. But $1,500 is not a big
No, no, no.
amount.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, I think we all need to
Yes.
be aware of that, because if we're coming in 400, 500,000 under, and we could take 250,000 of that and put it in the reserves.
Yes.
Then that's gonna help us also, because we're gonna be, I think, we're gonna be pretty tight on our budget, and we always wanna look at reserves, and so I would just, ask that we kind of keep that in mind too, going forward, that.
Yes. And we want to make sure that when there is a large amount, then we'll definitely, that's something we need to budget for in the previous year. But these real small numbers with a
Sure,
small
sure.
scanner, this and.
But it'll add up.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
it'll add up pretty
It does
quick.
add-
If everybody,
I do agree.
if everybody knows there's a pot of money out there that we're under on, then, that's, people are gonna ask, and I don't blame them. I don't mean that in any derogatory or negative way
Yeah, no,
whatsoever.
I think what we're doing is really making sure that we're sticking to their budget request for next year.
Yes.
And if
Just
there's a
trying to get some-
volume discount, for
Yeah, yeah,
example,
yeah.
we're,
I get it.
it's just good to know, hey, let's go ahead and get all the scanners now, because the idea of repairing and replace is actually cost us more. But you're right.
Yes.
We're doing that. I think Dale does a good job of creating that sieve. He kind of knows when it's a good thing to buy now and when it's a good thing to just
Yes.
wait.
Well, it's good to bring everybody up to par, man, because they've been working with less, so I think it's
Yes.
good, so. Good.
Okay, so let me see, I think there was one more, give me 1 second. Yep, it's the David Berlanga, and it kind of looks like the one before. We've got a lowering of the telephone and utilities out there, And we have ADA improvements making up the best or the biggest part of the capital outlay, which once again is coming from a different CIP.
Yes.
I actually believe that that's already been funded. Tyner can
Okay.
confirm that, but it's already been funded by pending ADA projects. It just hasn't
Great.
been started yet.
Okay.
And so some of these COs actually, their CO requests
Already.
actually have funding.
Okay.
He just kind of put it on the list so that it could get started,
Okay,
was my understanding from talking to his staff.
okay. I still think it would be great if we could have it all cleaned up.
And I do think we already have a couple projects, as you're saying, for
Yeah.
this particular building for ADA. It
Yeah.
just hasn't been initiated.
I mean, this, if you looked at this and you were a stranger, you'd go, ah.
Yes, yes.
And if you look at it clean, it's gonna be so
And-
reasonable.
Normally, we do remove those capital outlay items and because they are CO funded.
Yeah.
The thing was is that I knew he was coming in here to talk about
Yeah, I
those
hear
things.
you.
And you can't talk about something that's not shown on your request.
Totally good point. Yeah, it's a great
And
point.
so it will be removed. In fact, I
Right.
sent him an email
Yes.
notifying him which items were going to be removed after his
Awesome.
presentation.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, I'm gonna move this over here. And so that concludes that one, and we're left with, ahead of schedule, IT. It's we're way ahead, and he may, I don't know what he's got going on. I don't know if we could take a little break if you want to reach him. Actually, he might be on.
I'm already here.
Look at you go. All right, so let's take us through IT, and that's Department 1240, or do you want to get a little coffee and we'll come right back, Commissioner?
Oh, we're good.
Okay. All righty. Okay, well, we're going to go to 1240.
We
This
going?
is,
Oh, yeah?
I want to start. So, good morning, and take us through the operating budget request. The adjustments are listed below, but what you want to highlight for us, Lance, where we're kind of getting the crux of it? It's the 214, right? It's Odyssey.
Yeah, where do you want me to start? Just kind of one at
Yeah,
a time
just,
here?
you know, I see, so basically, the way I like to look at it, this is just an insight into my brain, is I look at the adjustment, and I say, how did that adjustment get there, right? And I look for the biggest ticket item, and then I start there, because for you, some of these are what I call, they're not choices, right? These are just the actual cost of doing business with the software, the licensing, and the cloud type of upgrades and video conferencing that we've done. But the 457 is a big adjustment. Let's account for it. Let's start us off with software service and maintenance itemizations and tell us, how we got here.
Okay, well, the total for the software service and maintenance, which is the 5,300 category, is right around $424,000 of increase. And just the biggest thing to point out, of course, is the Odyssey SaaS agreement that we discussed a few commissioner courts ago. That is 214,000 of that increase. So we're really only looking at about 210,000 of increase, most of which, like you had said, is the direct result of some of the preparation we had done through, things that we enacted during the COVID situation here. The biggest ticket item on that list is the court call video arraignment, which we are using right now to talk to inmates, the courts, the district courts and county courts, juvenile, and I believe the magistrates are now using it to keep themselves either operate remote courts or keep distance between them and the inmates.
Yeah, and I just want to note, Commissioners, that is a true COVID-19 expense, as is some of the other remote, concepts that we've had to go to, including video conferencing on demand and some of the other LogMeIn remote access increases. And so all of those are being documented as COVID-19 where appropriate. And it does, it certainly adds up, but that's why counties that get 860,000 when they're trying to operate entire court systems is not only fundamentally unfair, but not justified. In other words, I don't mind getting what we need and no more, But I certainly mind when we're having these types of expenses and those weren't taken into, the formula didn't work for us. And everyone knows that we've made ourselves very clear about that, but that there, luckily for us, is an opportunity to seek outside funding from dollars given to our community as a whole. And that's where these will come from. So, are there any questions? Kind of go over them in your mind.
I did forget to mention the biggest one, actually, the second biggest one, Microsoft Cloud. There's 550 licenses there. That's the rest of the Microsoft Cloud piece that we had talked about. Every time Microsoft Cloud came up, it's about $71,000. I just missed it when I was glancing through there. And that does include CSCD, which we provide their email. They account for about $20,000 of that $71,000. But those are the emails for everyone, as we have called it, I think, in previous times. Used to not everybody received an email, but that's kind of our cybersecurity requirements have changed that. So we did buy cheaper licensing for those. Those aren't the full-scale license that we buy for the people who need, that each have their own computer and need Office and all those things. But it still adds up to another $70 a year. So between that and Court Call, we're already just over 100,000 of that 200,000 I explained. And then I can take questions on any of the other specifics.
And it might be helpful when we're going through the next round, guys, maybe we should just put CV19 by each of these items so that we can see, which ones were really brought forth because of COVID. And it's just good to see, but it's clearly, I can go through them and, every Swagit, e-signature, video conferencing on demand, obviously the court call, video arraignment. Gov.delivery is COVID. That's the 19,000. Just so you know, that's also COVID. This is COVID. This is where you're feeling it. And the reason is COVID required us to operate differently. And how have we done that? Through technology. So it's very easy to see that our big liability is COVID dominating here in IT. And I do believe we're going to get a lot of these dollars back. And then the real question to ask you is, after doing this, which ones will be reoccurring? And that might be a help as well to the court, so that we have an expectation that this is a reoccurring, budgetary issue.
So all of the ones in the categories here in the budget are reoccurring. Those are all reoccurring.
Yeah, so we might be made whole this year, but maybe not in future years. So it's a liability the court needs to accept, but at least for this year, where we're struggling a little, we have an expectation of getting these items reimbursed. Okay, any questions regarding that part of the budget? Go to records management, which is 1470, and there's both operating and capital outlay. And it's scanner related on capital outlay, and on budget, there's an $18,000 increase, and it looks like it's vehicles, I think. So that's to be expected, I guess. Go ahead.
It was done for me.
Right,
I think
guys,
maybe
that's the
auditor can
van
explain
again.
that,
That's our
or maybe
enterprise
Michael.
lease, right,
Correct.
Dale?
Yes.
Yeah, so, you didn't, your operating budget and records management has less to do with you and more about how we're accounting for vehicles now, okay? I don't see anything weird there. The scanners, again, we've already had those discussions about what's beneficial now or later, but obviously, those equipments it's important to keep that, the scanners operational and in the best, form. And so then we've got records imaging, Lance, and a small increase there, and it's attributable to, let me see, is that professional services?
Yeah, the Document Manager is our document management system that we have. All of the jail district clerk and the district attorney are the biggest users as far as quantity, but we also have HR using it. It's just we call it our digital records warehouse.
Right, so it's just the licensing costs increasing. That's really all that's attributable to. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the county records management fund, I've got nothing. I've got net neutral there. No increases.
That's correct.
And that's the gist of it. Are there any questions regarding Lance's numbers? I'll get you a new number, commissioners, on what looks, all of the ones that he brought it forth on operating budget on 1240. How many of those were really COVID? It's a ton, okay? It's just a ton of it is. And we're going to live in a new world, so remote is here to stay. If there are no other questions, Lance, this is where you run, not walk away from here quickly. You are good to go.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so believe it or not, way ahead of schedule, an hour and some. We are done with today's budget workshop briefings. But in general, are there any questions for Dale that he can take home and get back to you on? Or Tyner can help us? I noticed that the county attorney's was still part of my packet. She is planning on rescheduling. So if you are wondering where she's coming in, it'll probably be the next budget workshop. I'm not sure which one, but.
Teresa could confirm, but I believe it's the 7th of
Okay,
July.
thank you.
And
Thank you.
tomorrow's is what? I need the information to print out for stuff for tomorrow.
Can we get
please.
that to Commissioner Chesney for tomorrow? Let's go ahead and get everybody their little cheat sheet on who's coming.
And that one's posted for Zoom tomorrow, so we can Zoom, right? Okay, cool.
Dale, so on the OpenGov, should we have every department listed on here, or why do we only have certain ones? Am I not accessing the right, I mean, I'm still trying to learn the system, so, but I see most of the presentations that we had, presentations with departments that are listed, but I don't see all of them listed here. Is there a reason for that, or do you know, Lisa, or?
I'm still reviewing those.
Oh, okay.
It's
Not a problem. That's all you had to
212
tell me.
different
That's all you
departments,
had
and
to
so
say.
as I
As they say,
finish
they're
reviewing,
coming.
as I
just-
finish reviewing
I
them,
just
I'm
thought I was missing
I'm
something.
giving
I
access.
understand.
Thank you.
Not a rush. Thank you.
Good
I'm sure it's
answer,
a
as I
lot.
say, good answer, good
And
answer.
then, if you haven't already received Department 1389, which is the Development Commission, the Nueces County Development Commission, we can get that to you immediately today.
Okay.
And then the other that's going to be discussed that we have is the capital outlay. And again, if you haven't gotten that yet, you should be getting it immediately.
Yeah, but COP is not on OpenGov.
Yes, CIP is not on OpenGov, not yet. It will be.
Working on it.
We're working on that. It's in progress.
Okay, I just need to package stuff for tomorrow. Maybe I missed it. I don't. It's on there.
Follow up and make sure
Yeah,
you
no,
get
it's
that,
Probably,
sir.
I just don't, I'm sure, have it somewhere. It's my fault. It's actually Commissioner Gonzalez's fault. But I'm
You're bad. Blame it on me. We'll take it. We'll take the blame. No problem. Okay, okay.
Okay, well, thanks, Ernest, for listening in, and I guess we're ready to adjourn. I'm gonna gavel us out at 10:17, and the mics are now muted and off.